actually senior pastor at a church just outside of Newmarket. I'm a preacher's nephew by John Baptist. I am a preacher's grandson.
You were doing from day one.
I was set up and a preacher's great-grandson from Holland in those days. So Baptist ministry is in my genetics. Can't be helped. Now you may say, well, what is an advancement director? And I know the screen behind me is kind of washed out, but don't worry, we'll put it into a nice, more romantic. It'll be less me, you'll see more of the screen as I turn the lights down low for that one. But you may say, well, what is an advancement director? And I've been doing this since January 2016. I help people give. Remember Pastor Mark saying about giving? I help educate in giving. I help facilitate giving. I have this wonderful privilege being called into this ministry now of seeing people, connecting with people. They want to give to God's kingdom, and we use it through a foundation. Some of you have a brochure on that, and we have two about direct giving, and the foundation is like this conduit where people give, and they say, here's where I want it to go to. It's whether by giving now or what we call legacy giving, giving through the will. That's where I was last night in Arnstein doing their congregation, talking about wills and estate planning and also incorporating giving into that. So I get to meet with people that give. And they just love to give. And they have a heart for giving. And they have a passion for various things, like missions or chaplaincy, healing broken hearts in our jails and in our police stations and in our hospitals and schools and chaplaincy, helping internationally get girls out of the sex trade. It's awful, some of the stories we hear of babies being used online sexually by their parents in third world countries. Not to sound gross, but this is a legitimacy here. And not only that, but you've got prostitution just north of Toronto along the 401 corridor, where Russian gangs are taking girls and press ganging them into prostitution through drugs and rape. And the girls are trying to get out and they have no social skills, and through a ministry called Bridge North, we're helping girls get out of prostitution from women that were formerly in prostitution but are released from that and are serving God and giving them hope and stability and functionality. And it's all about giving to people. And that's what I get to do, and I thank God every day for that privilege. I was not always an advancement director, because in my previous life, for 36 years, I had my own business. I did not come from the pastorate, even though I'm a preacher's kid and preacher's dad and preacher's nephew. And I had my own business. I didn't want to go to the ministry, because I'd see my dad in the ministry. It's not a cool trip some days. Pray for Pastor Mark and Pastor Jack. Help me, Jack. The Dutch guy. Jack. I was going to say Feach, it's not. Come on. What?
Inza.
No, please.
Ryan.
Fleetstra, thank you. I'm sorry, I've been traveling, so you're going to have to be really patient with me. We're actually related, I believe, in some fashion. Seriously, we are. Yeah, I wasn't always in ministry. And I own my own business for 36 years. I was a financial advisor. I had my own business. I had contracted with a company called Sunlight Financial, providing investment counseling, insurance products, investment products, personal, for businesses, for corporations, both ways, helping assure my clients their standard of living. Now I help people facilitate their standard of giving. Sorry for the play on words, but it's a fact. And all through those years, I was doing God's work, even in those, to prepare me for that one day 3 years ago when He said, I want you to go and do this now. And I sold my business. And I'm going to tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, when God calls, He generally calls at a time where you're going to be really challenged to go. Because the year that I was called to go out of my business was the best business year ever. It wasn't like I was failing and the bankruptcy trustees were knocking on my door and thinking, well, yeah, maybe this is a good time to think about getting into ministry. No. It was amazing. And I thought, if I don't do this, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life. And I'm very thankful that I obeyed God. I'm a big fan of obedience. And it really has made my life an interesting journey. It is across the bear at some points, ministry is, but fulfillment to help people the way I do, it's awesome. So today you're here because we're going to talk about finances. It's a reflection of what I did for my clients on a day-to-day basis. And it's kind of like a warm hug because it's what I used to do when I had my business. So I'm going to, and as I said, I like bantering, right? Interaction. I'm going to ask the question here, first of all, to start things off. It's Saturday morning, 25 to 10. What are you doing here?
I have no idea. I'm asking myself.
What are you doing here? I mean this in a very jovial, but I'm starting a process here. Why are you here?
I want to learn.
I want to learn what,
I
Colette?
want to learn if there's a better way that I can deal with my finances.
Okay. Anybody else have an answer for that? Why are you here? You don't know?
Be a better
Learn some
steward of
budgeting
God's
techniques.
money.
Budgeting techniques.
Be a better steward of God's
We'll talk about that word. Don't forget that word because I'm going to pull you out on that one, okay? You just put yourself in trouble, so hold on to that. Anybody else?
Bob said he was here for the free breakfast.
There you go.
I'm here because Pastor Mark said he'd beat me up if I didn't come.
Excellent. Ministry, it's our violence ministry outreach program. If you can't entice them, okay. Yeah, I'm looking at you and I'm going, no, I don't think so. I think there's a definite, different bulk, shall we say.
Yeah, we'll hug it out.
That's right, we'll duke it out, okay. Most of the strife in our relationships is probably to deal with mismanagement or allocation or just unbelievable involvement, this passion about money, the anxiety that comes with it. They say that 80% of the working day is in the pursuit of, production of, management of, distribution of wealth. There's a book called Christian Principles of Finances by Larry Burkett. I just heard it. The same quote from Dr. Jeremiah, who you may know, who preaches online in IPVR because he's got a great ministry. Nothing against Jack or Mark here. Just a little sidebar, but I use that. And he said just last week, he said, there are more references, as Larry says, there are more references to about the attitude of money, the condition of money, what money does for people, all principles of money, than there is even on sin. That's how serious this stuff is. And so today, we're going to go and deal with this. Now, I told you I'm a preacher's kid. My dad, when he was preaching, I remember him saying one day to me, or to a congregation, he said, if I wanted to preach a sermon on that left you with a guilt trip, I'd either preach on parenting or on finances. And that's very true. Because a lot of times we just don't know what to do about this. We're going in the dark, trying to figure it out on both stages, on both issues. This is not a guilt trip, all right? You are not talking to somebody here who initially started when he came out of mommy, had all his financial ducks in a row. I've made mistakes. So a lot of the stuff you're going to hear today is because of learning it the hard way. And it's still a process. I still don't have all my ducks in a row still. There's other things I could improve on. But it's so much better than what it was before because applying these principles today. Generally, when you meet and have a speaker, because there are others that are in the industry, for example, secular, that are in the industry, and they talk about how to get out of debt and how to manage debt and how to live on a cash-only basis and budgeting. Basically, with a secular presentation, you're going to find it for the purpose of getting rich. This is not this kind of presentation. It's about debt management, getting out of debt, budgeting, but the wealth that you will, if you apply these principles, the wealth that you will accumulate is not so that you can go and buy a Porsche so you can show off and see how great you look. Or how to go and take the money, and nothing wrong with buying a Porsche, if you are not identifying yourself with it. But if it's your identity of what you drive, if your identity is how much money you have, if your identity is how big a home you have and where you live, this is not the workshop for you. Because the affluence that you will get from this will be a true test of your spirituality and your attitude, because you don't want to go and have your identity on your net worth. Our identity for those that are in Christ is Christ. And it's for Christ. And it's the opportunity to be generous in the various ways that God allows us to be generous. To connect, as I see with people, our passions. Sorry if it sounds hokey, but that's the only word I can best use. Our passions, connecting our passions with our financial resources and experiencing the joy and the blessing of giving. Because there really is. It's an awesome thing to have in your life. Now some of you may say, yeah, well, I'm trying to make ends meet, dude. So that doesn't sound like that's going to happen. We're going to be giving you principles that if you apply and you stick to it and sacrifice and discipline yourself in prayer, you're going to have those opportunities later on. I guarantee. I guarantee you. So what we're going to do is talk about various things today. And I'm going to wash myself out and bring the screen up a bit here, because that's what it is all about. So we're going to talk about things like, what is wealth? What is financial bondage? A moment. Yeah, putting it on. What is financial bondage? Can you see that, by the way, guys? Okay. Yeah, that's a bit better. How to get out of bondage? Or we'll talk about, well, what is financial bondage in the first place? How to manage the cost of living, principles in giving. These are the things that we're going to deal with today. Now, young lady there again, I forgot your name.
Anne.
Anne. Anne, you said being God's steward. Now's I'm going to time to call you out. Okay, Anne? What does the word steward mean?
I think it's any money that you get is from God. You have the ability to earn money. He's given you certain gifts to make money.
Yep.
And I look at it like it's His money. And we are put on earth to, obviously He's not here physically, to use some of it for ourselves, to, you know, and the rest we should be used to glorify Him.
Excellent. Well said. That is exactly what it is. When we think, unlike the world system, we're going to counterculture here this morning, folks. The world system is, that's my money, that's my car, that's my stuff. I earned that stuff. And it's not. In God's perspective, it's God's stuff. He's the owner. And not only for those that are talking about stuff, but family. My wife is in the Lord. My kids are the Lord's. My grandkids, my daughter-in-law is in the Lord. They're all God's. My life is God's to do whatever He sees sovereignly fit. Now that may be a scary concept, but I will tell you that, yes, that'll open up some interesting scenarios, but long term, it's awesome. It really is awesome. Never regret it, folks. Never regret it. So when we talk about steward, we're not the owners, we're the managers, right?
Right.
That's the issue there. And if you have that attitude, you got the first great good step of what it means to handle your finances, because you're going to manage it according to His plans. And you can't experience God's blessing and planning of your finances unless you start off with that attitude right at the very beginning. Christ said that if you lay for yourselves up treasures where moth and rust doth corrupt, like the car, like the network, like the house, where thieves, don't do it, because it will not give you satisfaction. You know, it says, lay for yourselves treasures in heaven. I just described treasures on earth. What do you think treasures in heaven means? What does that sound like? Anybody want to give a shot at that?
Praying.
Praying. What else? What they are things you just can't buy with money. charity, compassion, joy, prayer, justice, integrity. Things that are eternal, that are blessed, because not only are you blessed by it, but because you're able to bless others by it. When you have gone through tough times, and people have expressed compassion to you when you've gone through those tough times, when that comes to a stop, because all tests come to a stop unless you're feeding the test, then you got to work on that. If you're doing something wrong and you're creating your own drama, well, get right with God on that. But I'm talking about just sometimes that things happen to us that are unfair. Those things actually eventually do stop, and you've got Christ coming along with you. And when they stop, then you have an opportunity to take the pain that you went through and the ashes that you're in, and you go, guess what now? I'm going to let somebody else be eased and cared for. And I can help them because I went through them. And I can share with them how to go through it. That we give compassion where compassion came upon us. That's the kind of heavenly treasures that we're talking about here, where moth and rust does not corrupt and thieves cannot steal. Used to be, and I don't know if anybody remembers, I think it was in the 80s, there used to be a t-shirt that says, "He who dies with the most," thank you, "he who dies," who said that? Was that you, Brenda? Was that you, Mark? Okay. Because, wow, that's awesome. He who dies with the most toys wins. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes.
Yeah, it was years ago. And it was great. Boy, it sold t-shirts like crazy. Then somebody else came up and said, "He who dies with the most toys still dies." And that killed that campaign real quick. Because that is absolute truth. You still die. Death is the great equalizer. So, the first point to my presentation was, what is wealth? Let's talk about what is wealth, okay? Years ago, way back in ancient time, wealth was attributed to land, how much money you owned, and livestock. And then something came along called gold. People started to put their currency trust into gold, resources, silver, jewels, and things of that nature. Industrial Revolution came on in the 1800s, and now currency, paper, money, became the attribute to one's wealth. How much you had in money determined how wealthy you were. Now today, wealth is still related to money, but it's even gone digital. We got bitcoins now. And it's a real controversial piece of work because, in essence, it originally was started to hide money, to launder money for people that were devious in nature. And now it's been considered an investment, and actually right now it is not considered an investment because it's so loopy, it's crazy. People did make money at the beginning, but now that's not worthy to be trusted. But people still deal in currency and bitcoins today. And that's what we have today. But we also have a different currency as well, and that is the potential to make money. That you have professionals that are looked upon by their wealth, not by the amount of money they have, but the potential that they can to earn wealth. And if they're going for financing and credit, they are looked upon it for that purpose. So it's not only actual dollars and cents or Bitcoin that you have in possession, it is also looked upon what is your potential to earn money. Let me put it to you in this way. So for example, here's an example of how much money, well, what I'm talking about. You got a 30-year-old. Some of you are 30 years or even younger, but here's the concept. Some of you can relate to this, some I'm going, no, that's long ago. 30-year-old making $36,000 a year, $3,000 a month. Which, by the way, the federal government's definition of poverty today is $23,850. By the way, if you're making $23,850 in Canada, you're in the top 10% of wage earners in the world. The average income for a wage earner in the world is $17,000. If you're making $23,850, you're making 10%. If you're making $31,000, you're in the top 1%. The average income for Canadians is $51,000 a day. That's the median range. So, let's stay within the parameters. You're 30 years old, you're making $3,000 per month, it grows 2% each year, you get a raise 2% each year. and you work and retire till 65, how much money have you earned, sweat equity, have you earned over those 35 years? Anybody want to take a guess at that? The floor is open.
1.5?
Sorry?
1.5?
1.5
No.
mil. Alrighty. I got 1.5. 1.5. Do I hear anything less? More or less? Anybody else? I didn't get your name, by the way.
Kim.
Kim. Good morning, Kim. I'm Gord. Okay, we're going from 1.5. You happy with that? It's 1.8, actually. Pretty good, Kim. Way to go. Yeah. You get to have a muffin. I mean, you look at this and you go, well, that doesn't, I mean, it's bare poverty, for heaven's sakes. That's potential for $1.8 million. You understand what I'm talking about here? It's quite a journey. And it's quite a wealthy journey, too. You know, you're going to be a millionaire by the time you're 65. Well, at least you've earned $1 million. Okay? Wealth can be used for several different things. It can be used to build churches. I talked about some of the things we do when we encourage people, not encourage people, but help facilitate their giving. You can see they can build hospitals, they can spread God's word, it can help the poor, the oppressed, the repressed, but it can also oppress and repress. It can buy people, it can cause them to be in human trafficking and slave labor, it can be used on frivolity, it can be used on lavishness, you can gamble with it, you can purchase and to corrupt, you can buy stuff that isn't healthy like guns and drugs, stuff that doesn't do your body good. It's funny stuff. It can be done for good, and it can be done for evil. And the Christian perspective is that God entrusts us with what we have. What He allows us to have is because we can be trusted with that. And the odd thing is that we think that if we get a lot of money, we're going to be financially free. In my previous world in finances, that's what they said, financial freedom. And that is such a misnomer because I had so many clients who didn't have money, then all of a sudden they got money, and it was poison to them. They didn't know how to handle it. They put all their faith in their bucks. I remember one client who was a farmer, starting out, newly married, 2 kids, and they're 30 plus. Took over from their dad's farm, multi-generational, and he was ready to go and work, and it was great, and they were just a loving couple. And then some Dutchman came with $2 million cash for their farm, and they sold it. Within a year, they were divorced.
Wow.
Within 3 years, he was divorced twice. It was poison. Even in our churches today, when we look at people, there is this temptation for some, not all, but in our churches today, when we see a man and a woman walk in and they have affluence and they have money and you know it, and they know it, we will tend to think that they must be really super spiritual. Look how God's blessing them. And that may be the case. But when you automatically, immediately, for all cases, believe that there's a direct correlation between wealth and spirituality, you're going to be really disappointed. Because that is not the case. I do finances for our pastors. I still help in investment counseling for our pastors and our missionaries and godly people that are in full-time service. And there are pastors who have a great loving spirit and they see their money as, right? As the stewards. And I will say this very carefully. There are some that it's almost borderline idolatry. They are over-consumed by their investment portfolio, their rates of return. They're worried whether they're going to have enough to live off of, and they've got uber bucks like crazy. And I'm very uncomfortable sometimes about that. So do not think that wealth is also a degree of spirituality. That the greater the wealth, the greater the spirituality of the person. That is not true. Sorry to disappoint if you thought that would be the case. Spirituality is based on reading God's Word. Spirituality is on meditating on God's Word. Spirituality comes about when you pray. And spirituality comes about when you obey without question, without hesitancy, God's leading and direction. You have an obedient heart, boy, watch what does go on in your world. It's awesome. Again, I'm a big fan of obedience. Not a popular subject, so I'm just I'm making a little plug here if you don't mind, okay? Obedience, go for it. It really is amazing. Okay, back on track. Where am I going here? So, how do we get God's wisdom with all this? Well, you have to pray. Right, Paulette?
Yes.
You have to pray. Now, even with all this wonderful biblical direction that we have, how come we have people in our churches and out of our churches, but particularly in our churches, in financial bondage? Now, when I say the word financial bondage, what do you think I'm talking about? Debt. Right on. Now, why would you think that I would call that financial bondage? You're a slave. Like, really? Like, you're a slave if you're in debt today? How many of you have been in jail for slavery, a slave for debt? Okay? Don't kid yourself. Years ago in ancient times, that is exactly what happened. If you didn't pay your bill on time, and you were overdone, they would put you in jail. Seriously. Make sense of this. You can't pay your bill? Fine. You're going to jail. You can't pay your debt? Fine. You're going to jail, and you're going to stay in jail until you can pay it off. And you're going, what? How do you pay it off if mine is in jail? Well, here's what they did. They started selling your stuff. And they not only sold your stuff, they sold your wife and your kids. Until you got out. That's why Christ was warning people. He says, I tell you the truth, you will not come out until you have paid every last penny. Excuse me. He's warning us. Don't get involved with this. Now, we don't have that jail thing, right? But we have another type of bondage. What would you say that would be? Interest? Nice. Always somebody comes up with an answer that I'm going, oh, that was one I didn't think of, so good for you. What does it say in my script? What kind of bondage do we have if it's not in jail? Physical bondage. If we don't have physical bondage, what do we have? Bankruptcy, financial, emotional bondage. Again, worry, despair, anxiety over this stuff, the consummation, the overwhelming consummation of it. It's easy to get credit today. I remember my first credit card when dinosaurs ruled. At the age of 19, tender young age, I was a handsome man in those days. No, I was a nerd, actually. And do you know what I had to do to get a credit card those days? I almost had to give a left kidney. They wanted my T1, my income tax report. They wanted my proof of income. They wanted some form of collateral. They wanted proof that I was a worthy person to hold this little plastic card Visa. I went through, like, I can't tell you what I went through. Today, I can go and occasionally I will, and I do banking on my cell phone, and every once in a while, congratulations, you've just been approved for $10,000 credit. Punch here. Pop, that's it. No credit rating, no blood, no kidney, no T1 or T4. There you go. And you can have it. And I go, no thank you. Because I used to say yes. And yes, and yes, and yes, and yes, and yes, and then I got myself into trouble. And that's how easy it is to get into debt. Credit card, credit debt is so easy. Oh, Gord, they'll never let you get beyond what you cannot pay. Oh, really? Wow. Naive? You better believe it. They want to get you into debt as much as they can because you know why? They can charge you more. Who said the word interest? There you go. That's right. Was it you that said it? Victoria? No? Who said interest? It was Victoria. Victoria said it, kids. Okay, it's her fault. That's it. You can even get a loan against your house. A loan upon loan to get your house. Oh, they will never make you get a loan more than what the value of the home is. Wow. We had a proof of that over in the States not too long ago. Subprime fiasco, they call it. Look what happened to that. Yes, they will. It's very easy to get into debt. Interest rates are the lowest that they have ever been. My first mortgage was $32,000 when I was 24 years of age, or 25 years of age, owning my first home. Guess what the interest rate on that mortgage was?
40%.
Almost 18.5%. Wow. And I thought, I'm going to lock it in because I've got a feeling the interest rates are going to go higher. And I did, and then 2 years later, when I wanted to sell the place, the interest rates went down to 12%. Now, if you have a mortgage that you prepay off, if anybody here is an adult and has an experience, does the banks do that for free? You got a 5-year mortgage, you're halfway through and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to pay that off early, or I'm going to go and buy that and pay that off. Do they do it for free?
No.
No. Oh, no, no, no. Oh, they charge a little teeny-weeny fee, right? No, they don't. They say, you know all that interest you were going to commit to for the rest of the 2.5 years? You're going to pay that up front along with the rest of the principal of the loan before you can go and carry on your life. I learned that lesson the hard way. And they didn't tell me that. So I'm telling you that. Okay? There are ways to prepay it off earlier. We'll talk about that. But just a little bit of an attitude there. So why is it happening? We got easy credit. We got easy interest. It's like meth. Once you get in there, you're hooked like crazy. And the larger the debt and the more delinquent account, the more credit they can charge. Watch out, God said. Watch out. Be on guard against all kinds of greed. It is attitude here that's the key. Let me see if I've got this right. Yes, it's attitude here that is the key. I'm not saying that debt is wrong. Don't get me wrong here. I'm not that, naive or brainwashed. Debt in its right place is okay. It's when you have debt that's constantly growing and it's not stopping and you have no plan to stop it and you have no plan to pay it off. Or in some cases, I have people who they're actually using debt to pay debt payments of other debts. Okay? That's scary. So, you have a Visa, and the Visa bill is $150 to pay for the month of September. You don't have $150. You go to your MasterCard to go and pay for the Visa.
You go from Jack to pay Jill.
Jack, whatever,
Yeah, I got you.
right?
Wrong Jack to pay Jill, yeah.
You got Jack to pay Jack to pay Jack to pay Jack. It's all Jack. Okay? That's what goes on. It's attitude here, ladies and gentlemen. It's attitude here. More than anything else. Watch out. Be on guard against all kinds of greed. And that is the principal reason why a lot of people are in debt today. Not just easy credit, not just interest rates, because you got to go and use this stuff, and the main motivation is we're a consumer-driven society. It's greed. It's greed. And for Christians, when it affects them, they're depressed, there's conflicts and strifes at home. It affects in ministry those that are in ministry. It even ruins spiritual lives, and people will do it for the sake of just getting out. I'm reading a book, God Gives a Second Chance. It talks about men and women who are in ministry who fall. I mean, severely fall. And the 3 reasons why they fall is power, sex, and money. And it's the consumption of money, the absolute enthrallment of money, being motivated and encouraged by the growth and acquiring of money. Many good, strong men and women in ministry have fallen because of greed. It's that serious, and that's why God talks about this. So the attitude here is we need to be sacrificial. Your willingness to deny impulses. This is a journey you're going to have that's a tough one if you're talking about, yeah, Gord, this is my life you're saying for the first half hour about debt. That's my life. We're going to go on a journey. Anybody here ever work out?
I don't know what that word means, sir.
I had to work out because my doctor says you need to work out, seriously. And I will tell you, when I started working out, I wasn't bench pressing 250 pounds day one. I had to work at it. I had to build it up. And eventually, not quite 250, but I got better than what it was. But it was little tiny steps. But it was the discipline to show up every opportunity on a consistent basis that I said I would 4 times a week to go and work out. Now I have been on the road and I am missing the gym like crazy. When you're on the road, you do not go to the gym and you sure eat badly. So I'm missing my peanut butter and jam sandwich when I get to go home, and the next day I'll be at the gym to get back on track again. But that's discipline. It took me a while to get there. And it's the little baby steps, but it's the word sacrifice. It's consistency. You're having to reduce your lifestyle. A willingness to deny impulses. You know what impulse buying is? There's a definition I use. It's buying the things you don't need with the money you don't have to impress the people you don't necessarily like.
Yes.
That's what impulse buying is. So let's look at what are the specific causes of impulse buying. Now I'll start with the people in the millennial or younger sector. What do you think are the triggers, most triggers, for getting into debt and impulse buying? What would it be, do you think? Those of you in that demographic, you want to take a shot at that? What do you think? Clothes. Okay, I heard that. That's cool. Shoes, purses.
Lifestyle.
I know it gets me into debt all the time, shoes and purses. This is what gets millennials into debt. Now, not that, you can get an app to get more credit. It's like, look at my friends, I'm on Facebook or a Snap thingy or whatever, or in your Facebook, whatever. And you see your friends. Oh, look at us. We're here, right? You know what I'm talking about. Look at the restaurant we're having. Oh, we're having a good time. Look at my friends. Look at where we're at. We're at the Bahamas. Look at the car I bought. Look at the shoes I bought. Look at me, what I bought. Ain't that perfect? And they're having a great time. And they're spending stuff to show that they're having a great time. And if you are a part of the group on the Facebook that is not having their good time, what do you do to compensate that? You say, well, that's them, I'm not getting in that world. What do you do if you're in that world? Come on.
You do what they do.
You do what they do. And do you do the same as what they do?
You better.
You better enough. You kick up the game. I like this girl. You up the game. You up the game. Oh, you had a great time there? Check this out. And see what it's like with you and your 5 cats, because I'm having a great time. Okay? Look at the place I went to. Look at the resort I went to. Look at the car I bought. Look at the house we bought, which is so expensive I can't furnish it. Look at that kind of stuff. And you try to outdo it. I mean, at least when I coveted, I went to those places and saw them. I didn't have to look up on Facebook. I coveted in real world, not digital. But you don't have to do that today. You just sit back in your, simple life and have such a good time. And I don't have a good time. Okay, I'll fix that. And you buy stuff that you don't need with money you don't have to impress the people that, quite frankly, they're not my best buds. We don't hang out. We know each other. But it's a competitive game. That's their world. Now, people in the older realm, you're now without sin either. The boomers, the 48 to 68 demographic, the civics, the 68 pluses. Did you know, Stats Canada has said today that people over the age of 65, that 25% of them have debt on the average of $60,000. That the average debt for a person, that the average debt for seniors is 17%. The average debt for 17% of seniors, 65 and older, is over $100,000. We got seniors that are dying with mortgages. Yeah. Never before. We are the highest, apparently, of the G7 countries in the world. Canadians have the highest amount of debt. Seniors in particular. Now, We had the millennials with their little digital, we had their fun. Now it's your turn, ladies and gentlemen, that are the boomers and civics. You ready? What is the number one reason why these people are getting into debt? Anyone want to take a shot at it?
Kids?
Who said it? Get yourself a muffin. Like you mean Timmy, 12-year-old kid?
No, they're 35-year-old kids.
Yeah, well, you listen up, you. It's Timmy that says, hey, I need money for a lawyer because I'm in a messy divorce. Or I need money because my business failed. Can you help me get out of it? They have this thing called chip mortgages. Have you ever heard of chip mortgages? What's a chip mortgage?
Is it the reverse one where you sell your house?
That's right. Well, you might as well.
live in it till you die, and then the bank.
You can get an instant credit, and you always have this perpetual mortgage right until you die. When you die, then they get to go and claim the value of their portion. You got to sell the house. But they're using that to go for the divorce, for the bankruptcies, or the kids just go, can I borrow 10,000? Can I borrow 10,000? Can I borrow 10,000? And the borrow is they never pay it back. One client I had, a woman and husband that I took over from business, great couple. He passed away, left her, the widow, in perfection. I'm probably, did I share this with the pastors? Okay, that's great, Mark. Husband died, left the widow in such good shape. Bungalow, small community, paid for, pension, RRIFs, RIFs, you know what I'm talking about, income plans for retirees, set for life. Then the kids come in. Can I borrow 10,000 for orthodontics? Can I borrow 10,000 for the transmission of the car that dropped? Can I borrow and borrow and borrow? And they never paid it back. And the long story, the short story, the long story goes, she ends up being bankrupt and she's on government assistance. She lost it all because she just couldn't say no, and they never paid back. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about. Impulse buying. You have to know that you've got to say no. There's no easy way around it, ladies and gentlemen. Overall, if you don't say no, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. You got to know the difference between need, want, and desire. Need is what the need is, the stuff you have to spend for necessities. Want is what you would like to spend, and it's only legitimate if you can handle it and you can afford to pay with it with cash. And it's not your identity. Remember I talked to you about that? You don't get a power trip or an ego trip because you own this want or this desire. I have no problems with this. Some people say, oh no, we should never have a desire. God puts the desires in our heart. That's all right. But the people who have desire entering God's principles is because God knows they can be trusted, because they don't lord it over anybody. They don't say, look how good I am. They don't do the selfie to go and show off. It's just a blessing that they have, and it's God's. And if God decides to take it away, not a problem. Way to go, God. I'll use it for your good as long as you be glorified, as long as you be trusted. Now, the one thing that people will overspend on, whether you're a millennial or a boomer or a civic almost, the one thing that we all have a tendency to overspend on is groceries. Oh, I have an amen to that. Okay, that's cool. Sounds like people know what I'm talking about. Groceries. You may say, but Gord, I need to eat. I need to eat. I need to have a stove and a fridge and a washer and a dryer. I need this stuff. Those aren't wants. I need a car or some ways to get around, accommodation. I need a place to live. I need utilities. I need heat and water, electricity. Those aren't wants and desires. Those are necessities. And I still am in trouble. So when we're talking about this, we're talking about stuff we need. That's fine, but even responsible. Because some of the stuff we think that what we spend on, what we think are needs, what we pay for them, is way out of line. And you'll understand what I'm talking about in a moment here. So let's get into principle. This has been all kind of great, Gord. How many preaching me about all this whole debt thing? I'm not here, I get it, I'm in debt. Let's get the principles. So here's the principles. If you want to get out of debt, you're going to have to do a couple things. First of all, you either have to increase your income or you're going to have to reduce your expenditures. Okay? It takes sacrifice. Gord, how do I increase my income? Well, you take a second job. I know this is not easy stuff to talk about, but it may be, can I do a second job? And you may have to do it. If you're in a job that pays minimum wage and you're working your heart out and it's not giving you any chance to grow, you may want to sit back and say, you know what, I think I need to go back to school. I need to go and find, I need to train myself. I need to get the education to get a job that's going to pay me a better wage. And that's sacrifice because that means you're going to have to work. Now there are some that says, no, not yet, Gord, wait, I'll carry on. The other one is start your own business. I worked at Sears before I became a financial advisor. I sold vacuum cleaners and sewing machines. I met my wife at Sears. I get to tell people, you know, when guys talk about their wives, they say they married their childhood sweetheart or the girl next door. I married my hairdresser. I met my wife at the beauty salon, selling vacuum cleaners and sewing machines, because in those days, before Sears, which doesn't exist anymore, and it's also declaring bankruptcy in the States right now, but we met each other at Sears in Sarnia, Ontario. I saw this girl, and she was a knockout. She still is. As I said, married 41 years this September. I looked at this wonderful creature and I said, you know what, if I'm smart, I could get haircuts free for the rest of my life. She's hot. She thinks I'm actually quite good looking, because usually girlfriends or potential girlfriends gave me a restraining order most of the time. She didn't give me a restraining order. That was a good sign right there. And she still does my hair. Do you like my haircut? There you go. Product of service provided. I actually last year, I thought to myself, I've saved a lot on haircuts. I wonder how much I've actually saved. And I'm a numbers guy. So I actually did the calculation. Average haircut, so many times per month, or once every, how many times maybe per year. Okay, figured that out. Do the math. Over 41 years of wedded bliss. I saved $10,000. Woohoo! And then I had to start thinking, how much does it cost to maintain said hairdresser? Stuff like accommodation, food, utilities, purses, shoes. Calculated that. $2.2 million. Still better investment. That's the sort of the thing that I had to go through. You know what? Why was I saying that in the first place? Oh yeah, start your own business. I started at selling vacuum cleaners and sewing machines, but I knew I needed to do something better, and I went and became a financial advisor. And that was a path that led me to where I am today. Anybody heard of Magna
Yeah,
Manufacturing? What does Magna Manufacturing do?
They make automotive parts.
Automotive parts. Is it a small company?
It's massive.
Massive. Where did Frank Stronach start that business?
That's a pipe fitter down south.
That's right. In a garage. He started his own business. Some of the most major corporations today started from a basement or a business or a garage. Do that. Now some of you may be saying, Gord, I've got a PhD in biochemistry. I don't know if that's such a thing. I got a degree in biochemistry. I'm making 60 hours a week, I'm at the top of the food chain in where I work. I cannot make any more money because I'm at the top of the top of the top. There's no other way to go, and I still can't make my ends meet. Well, then you go to option number 2, and that is you reduce your expenses. Perfectly both. So I said about groceries, right? Here's some stuff that you can use to help deal with groceries that you don't overspend. First of all, when you go to the grocery store, do not go hungry.
I don't buy anything unless I go.
Do not go hungry, because you will buy stuff that you didn't need. Ooh, Doritos. Oh, I'm done. Cheesy Doritos? Oh. You're done. Done. You'll buy stuff you don't need. Oh, it's on sale. Doesn't matter. But if I buy 2 bags, I don't get that deal. 2 bags and you get the sale. That is just wrong. My brother used to work for Sobeys years. And I mentioned that's sale stuff, you know, 2, you only get the sale and you buy 2 of the stuff. He said, yeah, we make oodles of money doing that. The only one that benefits is not you, it's the grocery store. Make a list of what you need. Now I want you to listen to this. Listen to this carefully and closely. Make a list of what you need when you go grocery shopping. Do not go hungry, and you make a list. Well, what if I don't know what I need? Here's what you do. You make a schedule of the menu you're going to cook that week. Huh? What's the toughest meal of the day to make, ladies? Dinner, supper, right? How am I going to please my man? A macaroni and cheese.